There are moments in life when a single declaration can carry more weight than 1,000 carefully planned actions. Words have the power to shape destiny, and once spoken, they cannot be taken back. A bold statement uttered in pride, anger, or pure defiance may seem harmless in the moment, but its echo can ripple far beyond what we imagine. To say, "The first woman who walks through that door will be my wife," is not just a sentence. It is a challenge to fate, a dare against the unseen forces that govern our lives. It is the kind of declaration that seems to place power firmly in our hands, yet in truth, it surrenders our control to destiny itself. The human spirit often seeks to prove itself through words. We believe that if we speak loudly enough, if we sound certain enough, then life will bend to our will. Declarations become weapons of pride, shields of ego, and tools to display control. But the reality is far more complex. Every word spoken into the world carries energy, intention, and consequence. When those words are bold, public, and unshakable, they stop being mere sounds and become binding. They begin to shape reality, turning from a boast into a living truth. That is the weight of a single declaration. It transforms imagination into responsibility. What makes such moments even more powerful is the unpredictability of their outcome. In the heat of the moment, a declaration feels like power. It feels like control. It feels like a human standing taller than destiny itself. Yet, the moment the words are released, control slips away. The declaration no longer belongs to the one who spoke it. It belongs to fate. And fate has a way of answering in unexpected ways. Sometimes it answers with irony, sometimes with justice, and sometimes with miracles we never asked for, but desperately needed. There is also a deeper lesson hidden in such moments. Declarations expose who we are beneath the surface. A reckless vow reveals pride. A careful promise reveals fear. A daring statement reveals desire. Words are mirrors, and when spoken in public, they reflect truths we may not even admit to ourselves. That is why one sentence can carry so much weight. It forces us to confront the reality we have created, even if we did not mean to. Once the words are out, we cannot run from them. We must face them, live with them, and accept the story they begin to write. In the end, the weight of a single declaration is both a burden and a gift. It is a burden because it binds us to consequences we may not be ready for. It is a gift because it teaches us the true power of language, the responsibility of speech, and the humbling reminder that fate will always have the last word. A sentence spoken in defiance can become the doorway to transformation. A vow made in pride can lead us to the lesson of humility. And sometimes, what begins as nothing more than words becomes the very turning point of a life forever changed. Power is a tempting thing. It gives us the illusion that we can bend life to our will, that if we stand tall enough and speak loudly enough, the universe itself will obey. Many times, we mistake power for control, believing that with enough authority, wealth, or confidence, we can dictate outcomes and silence the hand of fate. But fate is not a servant. It does not answer to commands, nor does it shift according to human pride. Fate is an invisible force that listens quietly, watching, waiting, and choosing its own moment to intervene. When power tries to play with fate, it is like fire challenging the wind, bold, dramatic, but always at risk of being consumed. The problem with power is that it makes us overconfident. We start to believe that no matter what situation arises, we will have the upper hand. A bold declaration, a sudden decision, a reckless promise. These feel like demonstrations of strength. In the eyes of others, they make us look untouchable. Yet the truth is that in these very moments of pride, we are at our most vulnerable. Fate has a way of responding not when we are cautious, but when we are arrogant. It watches for the moment when we assume victory is guaranteed, and then it reminds us that life is never fully under our command. When power collides with fate, the results are rarely what we expect. Sometimes fate answers with irony, placing before us exactly the opposite of what we desired. Sometimes it answers with challenge, sending trials that strip away our pride and force us to confront our limits. And sometimes, in its most mysterious form, the fate transforms a reckless act of power into the very lesson or blessing we did not know we needed. What begins as arrogance can become humility. What begins as a game can turn into destiny. The outcome is never ours to choose. It belongs to forces greater than ourselves. There is a certain beauty in this tension between power and fate. It reminds us that no matter how high we rise, no matter how much control we think we have, we remain human. We can influence, but we cannot dictate. We can plan, but we cannot guarantee. This realization can feel like a loss to those who worship power, but in truth, it is a liberation. To understand that fate will always have a role is to accept that we are not meant to carry the burden of controlling everything. Some events are beyond our reach, and sometimes that is exactly how it should be. When power plays with fate, it is not always a battle to win or lose. Sometimes it is a dance, a conversation between human will and destiny's design. We speak and fate responds. We declare and fate redirects. In the end, the lesson is not about defeating fate, but about respecting it. True wisdom lies in recognizing that power without humility becomes self-destruction, while power guided by respect for fate becomes transformation. And so, whenever we feel invincible, whenever we believe our authority can rewrite destiny, we must remember power can roar, but fate always decides the echo. Life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. We walk through our days with plans, expectations, and carefully built walls, believing we know how the story will unfold. Yet, destiny often chooses to introduce someone who does not fit into our plans, someone who was never meant to be part of the script, but who arrives like an uninvited guest at the exact moment when everything begins to change. The stranger who walks into our life can become the turning point of our story, a reminder that the greatest shifts often come not from what we prepare for, but from what we never see coming. The stranger carries with them a kind of power we rarely acknowledge. They arrive without history, without the burden of shared memories, without the chains of expectation, and in that, they hold the ability to shatter the world we thought was solid. Sometimes, they come as a disruption, someone who challenges our beliefs, shakes our pride, or forces us into situations we swore we would never face. Other times, they arrive quietly, slipping into our lives without warning, yet leaving behind an impact so deep it cannot be erased. Either way, their presence rewrites the path we thought we were walking. It is not always comfortable to meet such a stranger. In fact, it is often unsettling. We resist their presence because they remind us that we are not fully in control. They test our boundaries, break through our defenses, and expose truths we may have worked hard to hide. They might be the person we judged too quickly, dismissed too harshly, or underestimated too completely. And yet, as time unfolds, it becomes clear that this very person, the outsider, the unexpected figure, holds the key to unlocking parts of ourselves we didn't even know existed. The beauty of the stranger lies in their unpredictability. They may become a mirror, reflecting back the weaknesses we try to deny. They may become a challenge, pushing us to grow in ways we would have never chosen. Or they may become a gift, bringing into our lives a kind of love, friendship, or loyalty we never thought we deserved. Whatever role they play, they serve as proof that destiny is never random. Even the people we believe have arrived by accident may, in truth, be placed in our path with purpose. When we look back, it is often the stranger who becomes unforgettable. They were not part of the original picture, yet their presence changed the colors of the canvas forever. They remind us that the unexpected is not something to fear, but something to embrace, because it is in the unexpected that transformation begins. Life does not always move according to our designs, and perhaps it is better that way. The stranger who changes everything teaches us that destiny writes its own story, and sometimes the characters we never invited become the ones who shape our lives the most. Pride is a seductive companion. It whispers in our ear that we are untouchable, that our strength is unmatched, that the world itself bends to our will. Ego builds on that whisper, convincing us that every decision we make is flawless, every declaration we give is final, and every step we take is proof of our superiority. On the surface, pride and ego feel like armor. They protect us from doubt, they shield us from fear, and they give us the illusion of control. But beneath that armor is a hidden truth. Pride is expensive, and ego always demands payment. The price is rarely visible at first, but it is always heavier than we expect. The hidden cost of pride reveals itself slowly. It appears in relationships that crumble because we refuse to admit fault. It shows up in opportunities lost because we were too stubborn to listen. It hides in the silence that follows when people begin to step back, wary of being near someone who cannot see beyond themselves. Pride convinces us we are rising higher, but in reality, it is often isolating us, cutting us off from the very connections that could keep us grounded. Ego, on the other hand, blinds us to the warning signs. It tells us that we are still winning, even as the foundation beneath us begins to crack. The most dangerous thing about pride is that it feels like strength when, in fact, it is weakness in disguise. True strength is found in humility, in the courage to admit mistakes, in the willingness to learn and adapt. But pride refuses humility, and ego mocks vulnerability. They make us believe that to bend is to break, when in reality, it is the rigid branch that snaps in the storm, not the one that bends with the wind. And so, the hidden price is often destruction, a fall from grace, a loss of respect, or a confrontation with consequences that no amount of ego can shield us from. Yet pride and ego are not without purpose. They teach us through pain. When the cost finally arrives, when the debt of arrogance comes due, we are left with a choice: cling to the ruins or rise from them wiser. The fall from pride strips us bare, and in that rawness, we finally see the value of humility, the power of honesty, and the strength of vulnerability. Ego may have brought us to our knees, but it is in that position that we discover the freedom of letting go, of no longer needing to prove our worth through arrogance. In the end, the hidden price of pride is a lesson that cannot be avoided. We may pay it in silence, in loneliness, or in regret, but it will be paid. And when it is, we are reminded that pride is not the proof of greatness. It is the test of it. True greatness is not found in never falling, but in rising after the fall, stripped of ego, humbled by the cost, and ready to walk forward with the kind of strength that does not need to shout. Because the truth is simple: pride demands a price, but humility offers a gift. Love and destiny have always shared a strange, undeniable bond. No matter how much we try to plan our lives, no matter how carefully we build our walls or set our rules, there comes a moment when destiny intervenes and rewrites everything. Sometimes it begins in arrogance, with a declaration made out of pride, or a decision taken out of defiance. Sometimes it begins in chance, with an encounter we never saw coming, or a twist we never asked for. Yet what starts as chaos can slowly transform into the most profound experience of all: love. And that is the mystery of life. No matter how the story begins, destiny has the power to guide us toward an ending we could never have written ourselves. Love does not always arrive in the form we expect. It can be disguised as a challenge, hidden within conflict, or buried beneath circumstances that seem impossible. At first, it may feel like irritation, resistance, even hatred. But love has a way of slipping through the cracks, of revealing itself in the quietest moments: a glance that lingers too long, a word spoken with unexpected softness, a gesture that breaks through pride. These small sparks begin to shift everything. And suddenly, the person we swore we would never accept becomes the person we cannot imagine living without. Destiny works in silence, but its work is undeniable. What makes love born from destiny so powerful is that it carries both weight and wonder. It is not built on perfection, but on transformation. Two people are forced into situations they did not choose, faced with challenges they did not want, and yet, through the storms, they find each other. The very things that seem to divide them become the bridge that connects them. Destiny does not waste pain. It uses it to carve a path toward meaning. Love, in this sense, is not an accident, but the very purpose hidden within the chaos. And yet, destiny does not guarantee an easy road. Love tested by fate is often love refined by fire. It demands sacrifice, patience, and the courage to lay down pride. It asks us to look beyond our fears and trust that even the messiest beginnings can lead to something beautiful. The unwritten ending is not promised to be simple, but it is promised to be true. And in truth lies the kind of love that endures storms, overcomes ego, and outlasts time. When we look back, we realize that the ending we never planned was the one we needed all along. The arrogance, the pride, the conflict, they were chapters, not the story. The real story is the transformation, the way two lives collided and became something more than they ever imagined. That is the gift of destiny. It takes what begins in defiance and shapes it into devotion. It reminds us that love cannot be forced, cannot be faked, but when it arrives, it rewrites everything. And so, the unwritten ending is not ours to script, but ours to live, with hearts open, with pride set aside, and with faith in the mysterious hand of destiny that always knows the way.